And finally, the question, which I've believe talked about, but it's something that has come up in anti-vax circles a lot as a reason why vaccine campaigns were not safe and caused trouble. And that is that the old polio vaccines had a virus called SV-40 in the vaccine, and SV-40 is carcinogenic. And so they injected, I don't know how many hundreds or tens of millions of people, probably hundreds of millions of people with a cancer-causing virus. And isn't that the reason why we should be careful about polio and other vaccines? And unfortunately, that shows a complete misconception of how vaccines are made, and in fact, what SV-40 is. And one of the first things that I got when I got into looking at viruses is I remember reading the minutes of a conference that I believe was called by the CDC or the NIH or something like that, on how to deal with unwanted viruses in vaccines. And the problem was, so they say a live measles or mumps or chickenpox virus in their vaccine. But what they were saying is when they attempt to purify it, they can't find any way to separate just the chickenpox virus or the measles virus from the other viruses which they don't want, which could be contaminated, which are contaminating, and which they're worried would cause other disease. And so they essentially gave the evidence that all of their vaccines, live viral and attenuated viral vaccines, are contaminated, particularly the live viral ones. Not sure if the attenuated ones are because they're just taking proteins out. But let's just say the live viral vaccines are contaminated with all these other viruses. So there was no doubt of this. They proved this was the case by doing analysis. And then they sort of went around the room for a few days saying, what are we going to do about this? And the conclusion was there's nothing we can do because we need the measles virus in there. There's no way to separate the measles virus from all the other ones. There's nothing we can do about it. And then they also came to a consensus that they shouldn't make this public. They shouldn't tell anybody because then, quote, people would start to lose confidence in their vaccines because they would realize they're contaminated with all these other potentially disease-causing viruses. So that was the end of it, and they just basically didn't say anything, and that was the end of the story. Again, this is a clear misconception. So what's really happening, and what is SV-40? SV means simian, means monkey virus number 40. So if you know what I've been talking about for the last 2 years, what you realize is that a live measles vaccine or live polio vaccine is nothing more than a simian, meaning monkey, kidney culture that is broken down into all these pieces, and the pieces are a little bit different from each other, obviously. So they're not uniform because there's no actual virus. So they have probably hundreds or maybe thousands or maybe even millions of different little particles, and they start counting them. So this is SV1 and SV2 and SV3, SV-40. And so you start seeing SV-40 must be a particular prominent one that they see in these broken down monkey kidney cell cultures. That's not a virus. That's, as I've said, just debris coming from the breakdown of the culture. And of course, they can't get that out because it's the same size and consistency as what they're calling the measles virus, which itself is nothing more than a component of a broken down cell culture. So they say, what the hell, just keep it in there, hope nobody will notice. And they inject you with all these, quote, viruses, none of which are actually viruses. They're just broken down cellular debris. Now, some of the people who get injected or swallow broken down cellular debris get sick. No surprise. And some of them probably even get cancer, particularly if you do it often enough and young enough, and you do it in malnourished children in certain parts of the world. And so they get sick, and then you say this SV-40 causes cancer, which there is no evidence of that. If you don't believe me, show me the paper where an SV-40 was isolated and given in the normal way to, or even injected, I guess in this case, into animals, pure SV-40, and they got cancer. Because as far as I know, that paper doesn't exist and can't possibly exist, because they can't purify it from any of the other crap in there. And so this only goes to further the misconception of the viral theory. And so even though it seems like it's an anti-vaccine position, it's a pro-virus causes disease position, which works against the entire quest for the truth in virology and medicine. And so I think we need to combat this type of thinking.